Okay, great. Hi, Payal. Hi, Ranbir. Thank you so much for joining us here at the 7th Indie Meme Film Festival. First of all, huge congratulations for making this a beautiful piece of work. I want to quote Amir Aziz again after watching your film, where you talk about everything will be remembered, and rightfully so, as your film preserves some of the brave resistance of the youth in India, as well as some of the darkest chapters that India has experienced and is still experiencing, unfortunately. There is a lot of anger in this film, but I feel the anger is conveyed with a lot of sensitivity and vulnerability. But these were just my initial thoughts and appreciation for the beautiful and important work that you both have created. And maybe we can begin the discussion. Maybe my first question is to Payal, the director of this film. Like, I think with this film, you've shattered all the conventions that are associated with the term called documentary. By inventing a fictional character called L, you were able to morph her voice into a chorus of thousands of more voices feeling the same angst as L does. At what point did you decide, Payal, to integrate L into the film? And also, how did you go about casting her? Because I feel there's a particular tone to her voice, and it's a very specific way of narrating the story. If you can talk a little bit about the process.
Thank you for having us and for this nice introduction also. So the process of making this film took a long time. It started when Ranabir and I were together at film school at FTII. So around 2016, we decided to start shooting campus life. And at that time, we didn't really know what is this film going to be. We had a camera and we had a recorder and the desire to shoot. So that's what we were doing at the time. And we took a lot of like interviews of our classmates, of our friends, people around us. And inevitably the questions of who they wanted to be with, or who they couldn't be with in terms of their relationships, and this question that is there for everybody in India between like from their mid 20s to late 20s, from the pressure from the family, you can't, who you're going to marry, and all these things were coming up quite often in these interviews. Meanwhile, there were other things happening in the country also. And then we finished with the film school, and some of our friends had been shooting in other universities around the same time. And I think they also were not clearly, sure of that, what is the film they were going to make. So we were talking and they said, okay, we have some footage, and if you are making a film, you take it. So that was very nice and generous of them. And they were also filmmakers. So it's very good footage, like really well shot. So we got some of their footage, and then we started thinking, the film started getting some kind of direction, like how we wanted to take it. And I think also things were happening so rapidly in the country that it was not avoidable to not talk about these things if you are talking about student life. So then we collected a lot of footage over 5 years. In fact, too much footage. It was like a growing archive of memories. Then we were thinking around 2018, 19, like what would be the divide, how to put all this together? Like what would be, a way to do it? So we came up with this idea of like having a fictional character to talk about some of the early things we had taken in our interviews right at the beginning,
And we had cut some sequences with voices from those interviews as well initially.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. But like it was becoming difficult to deal with so much material, and we were also very, very excited by this form of like hybrid nonfiction. I think that the space of nonfiction is so exciting, and there's so many things you can do, and this idea of having this fiction nonfiction thing became very important to us. So we came up with this character, and that's when I roped in my friend and classmate Himanshu Prajapati to be the co-writer. And he and I together like came up with the character and what the story would be. And then because he was also from FTII, so it became very easy to write about certain things. And so like this, we came up with this character, and Later on, even we got a writing consultant, Neil, who helped us again to refine the text. Then during the casting process, it was very, very important for us to have somebody in the film who really understood what was going on, and not just somebody who's coming, just as an actress, somebody whose political motivations are similar to ours, and also somebody what we thought would be good also, who had benefited from public education like we had. So she's also from NSD, and she's a really, really good actor. Like Bhumi Sutta, she's really blew us away.
Yeah.
And I think she also contributed a bit to the text also, with her way of talking. And we wanted somebody like, we also got lucky with this thing of the multi-language, that she speaks two languages, and this idea was interesting to us, that because when we are in college in India, like you might be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't speak your language, right? So you have to either speak English or Hindi or something like this. So we thought of this also as a thing that, in the middle, she stops speaking in Hindi and speaks her own Bangla. So, yeah, so these were many things. And it was actually a very enriching process, I think, for both of us and everybody involved.
Yeah, no, it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating to hear, because I also saw Mr. Anand Patwardhan's Reason, which talks a little bit about, or not a little bit, a lot more about the issues that you all speak in the film. But this layer of abstraction that's created through the character L, and it changes the whole feeling of the information. So it really offers us a more gentle and a more interesting perspective to look at. So thank you for sharing that. I guess my next question was more towards Ranbir, like as an editor and as a cinematographer, I had a couple of things I wanted to ask you. Like, for example, especially the element of color in this film, right, which is used very sparingly. I think I can remember just 2 or 3 color sequences, and even those sequences thrive in darkness, right? With absolutely, I didn't see any daylight in those color sequences. And in all of the black and white sequences that we see, which is for the majority of the film, even though we see daylight, there's a feeling of watching a long, never-ending night. I think it's probably hinting poetically at the title, A Night of Knowing Nothing, which is fantastic. But I'm just curious if you can talk a little bit about your process of collaboration with not only with Payal, but also with the colorist, which I think might have played a very big role in achieving the look of the film that it is right now.
So about the color footage, that's actually archival footage. That's something that we came across online in this online archive called Padma, which is a great archive. And it doesn't have any direct connection with with the words as such, but it's just something that we thought worked really well with when you see this kind of a family that's sort of coming from an elite space, and you juxtapose that with the things which are being said. And so that was color, that was shot in color, and when it was shot, and we decided to keep it, because it was something that we felt worked somehow there's no reason behind it as such, but it just worked well when it appears in color in the film. And it's funny because everything else is contemporary and is black and white, and this is from the past but is in color, and this timelessness is something that we wanted to play with as well. And about the rest of the film, we had a fantastic grader here in France. His name is Lionel Kopp, and he's somebody who has a lot of experience in working with celluloid in the past and has a deep understanding of it. And we had all kinds of formats. So to kind of put everything together and create this, to get a consistent image in the first place, was he did a magnificent job. And because we had CCTV footage from mobile phones, from DSLRs, even film. So it was something that it really contributed towards in creating a homogeneous kind of image. And What you're saying is true also. There is a sense of this long night, I guess. We did want a higher contrast kind of in the images, but at the same time, a softness which celluloid kind of brings, and a sense of nostalgia also that it evokes. And
Yeah.
do you want to add to that?
No.
No, that was very, very thorough, and thank you, Ranbir. Because it's so funny. Even in my film school, most of the students are usually afraid of the darkness, where they're like, "Oh, don't overexpose. The grain is gonna kick in." I'm blown away by how you both have embraced that noise or the grainy texture, and even like pushed it to its limits, I guess. So it worked. It worked fantastic for this film. I guess my next question is probably for both of you. I think Payal as a director and Ranbir as an editor. Like, how did you both kind of work together and invent the visual language for this film? There's a particular sequences that come to my mind. For example, hostels. In India, like I also grew up in a hostel, so I know like it resembles, like the last bit of socialism that's left in this world, a symbol of equality. But there's a very serene and almost tranquil approach when you were documenting the space, and even in terms of the editing, the amount of length you hold onto shots in the hostel when compared to the sequences on the street, for example, which are charged with a lot of energy, a lot of anxiety, and there's a lot of handheld freestyle of motion. I'm just curious, how did the visual language come into place?
I think it all had a lot to do with the space itself. Like the scenarios in FTI that you see, they are usually like lazy afternoons, or people doing daily stuff, maybe hanging their clothes or cooking and things like this. But there was a certain sedentariness to those spaces, and in contrast, what was going on the street had like a lot of energy and bodies, and so the framing was also, the thing is that a lot of the footage we was found footage, right? Like a lot of people had been shooting elsewhere, so we had to kind of, as in, we had already shot on the campus, and then the contrast was what other people had shot on the street. So it was very interesting for us also to the language was kind of formulated while editing,
and we had to pick up on what was already there in some senses from the footage we received, and when we shot again, we had that in mind as well.
Yeah.
And but I think that more than that, a lot of it were also edit choices, in the sense that the sequences which open the film, which are in the campus, there is a kind of calmness and a fond kind of association with those spaces, and laid back nature, as she was talking about. So the kind of shots we selected were also of that nature.
We have a lot to give to our time in FTI, just in terms of what it gave us. So I think there's a lot of fondness for it. Of course, there were problems, no doubt. All public universities have problems, but still, this quality that you're talking about was something that
I think came naturally.
Yeah, it was, and the film is also a kind of ode to public universities in India, because they've contributed such a huge part to all of our lives, and I think it's something that needs to be protected for the future also.
And we completely agree with your statement that hostels are kind of the last remaining socialist spaces, which
Yes,
absolutely, and it gives a tremendous amount of nostalgia in the way you've composed or in the way you've documented these spaces. But that's great. Let's move on to the next question, which is, I think, a very famous question, I guess, for you, Payal, is the usage of the drawings and the text. Especially like one image that really stands out is a shot of this empty sky, and we see a drawing of this woman almost kneeling down and giving up hope in particular. Usually, how do you go about formulating or conceiving these images or these texts?
So in all our work, we like to work with drawings and text. And in this film, especially, we thought it was important to incorporate some kind of material objects, because the idea is like the letters, and that they are found. So as if somebody is actually writing it, and then there are doodles on the side. So to give it a kind of object feeling, and a kind of a something you can hold on to, actually, as if it was something physical. But the drawings itself, we worked with an artist who was also from FTII, Suranjoy, whose whose diaries drawings had been very something that I really liked when he used to do them for himself, like
And he
doodles.
used to make these drawings of the hostels
Wow.
Yeah.
when we were there.
So I think that was a big inspiration, and his work is really good. So we requested him to maybe just, do a, like, whatever he saw the film, and whatever he interpreted, however he wanted to do. So he gave us a few things, and then we took from there the feelings and things that. And yeah, his work is really, really good, and I think in some parts very melancholic and works well with some of the themes in the film.
No, fantastic. I mean, it just opens a whole new dimension and whole new layer in the way we perceive the film. So I think that worked beautifully. I guess since we only have 5 minutes left, maybe this is the last question for both of you. In fact, is the formal choice of using music, especially towards the end, and the end kind of like really broke my heart, because for me it felt like we were watching some sort of like a painful elegy to what just happened in India, and there's this, even though they're dancing, there is uh, a rage to it, and there is, like helplessness to it in a way. And it kind of represented like an entire collective rage and helplessness of an entire generation. And here is the moment where you get away from the rhetoric, you get away from the words, you just do the music, and the images do its job. And I know, like, for the I think for the 90% of the film, you have a solid choice of, as an editor and as a director, like you made a choice of not incorporating music at all, but I'm just curious, how did that formal choice of putting the music in the end come into place? And
I think it's very true what you say, that the feeling at the end, that was one of the key things that you wanted to leave the film with. It's interesting that you say that, because I've noticed a lot of people who are not from India see it as hope, but people who are from India see it in a very different way. And that's interesting that you said this also for me, because that's how I see it too. So interestingly enough, this was the sequence that we edited first. So
wow.
that's the first thing that Ranabir edited. And we knew that we had to end the film with this because of the sense of pathos that there was in those bodies and the way the movement was happening.
And I don't know, even we don't know what exactly it is, in the sense that why we chose to end it in this manner, but there is just a feeling which is evoked from that dancing, and a sense of letting go almost.
Right.
And that, in that sense also, while we have used music in the rest of the film, but sparingly and in small, but this is the first time we kind of
use music
let it take over.
I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think
no, it's great.
That sense of pathos only that we wanted to.
Right. No, especially I think it also comes right after Nachi's speech about, like, this is Modi's reality, Trump is the reality, and it's this youth coming to terms with it, or trying to grapple with the reality, and somehow that leading to dance. It's a very, very evocative, very evocative. But I don't want to take a lot of your time anymore. I think we're at the end of it. But thank you again, Payal and Ranabir, for sharing your film with us at Indie Meme. It was such an immense joy and pleasure, just to be watching your work. And I can't wait to see what you both create in the future. So thank you for sharing your film with us in Austin.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for having us here.
Yes.